Welcome to this episode. Have you subscribed yet? The mystery of the mountain ghost's marriage in Ghost Opera in Yunshan, Records of the Nuo Mask and the Sunken Coffin. Chapter 15, the Yibian at the end of the volume, the changes of the sunken coffins at the bottom of the river. The rain poured down in sheets. The Yunshan River glistened dark red in the night. Su Wanyan stood on the bank, clutching half of a theater ticket found at the bottom of Chen Qixi's coffin. The ink bled in the rain, gradually revealing the words, River, God, Sacrifice in 1937, the 19th stone coffin. A stabbing pain shot through his left ring finger, and the birthmark wriggled like tree roots under the skin, pointing towards the center of the river, where the 20th stone coffin had somehow emerged from the water, and the coffin lid was making a creaking friction sound. Brother Wang Yin. Lin Yunyang's voice came from behind with a rare tremor. Su Wanyan turned around and saw the coffin-shaped birthmark on the back of her neck glowing faintly in the rainy night. Rainwater dripped from her chin, forming a small thousand hands pattern on the ground. In her hands was half of a Nuo Opera mask, exactly the one Su Xunyang wore when she was laid in the coffin. The human tooth in the eye socket glinted a bluish white in the lightning. Chun Shizi's tombstone ... double quotes. Lin Yunyang hesitated, her fingers unconsciously rubbing the notch on the edge of the mask. Under the moss at the foot of the tombstone, there was pagoda, tree sawdust with the same birthmark as yours buried. Su Wanyan suddenly remembered what Chen Shaozi had said before his death. The coffin, sinking in 1937, was not the beginning, but a cycle. He walked towards the river. The beam of his flashlight swept across the river surface. 19 stone coffins were neatly arranged. The reliefs of Nuo Opera masks on the coffin lids cast distorted shadows in the water, and the 20th stone coffin was at the center. The coffin lid had cracked a half-palm wide gap, revealing the dark red coffin lining inside. It was made of fabric soaked in the bark of the Yinshan pagoda tree, specially used to hold the living soul of the sacrifice. When his fingertips touched the edge of the stone coffin, the water surface suddenly boiled. The 19 stone coffins stood up simultaneously, and the collision sound of the coffin lids and the coffins formed a strange drumbeat. Su Wanyan's reflection shattered and reformed on each coffin lid, eventually turning into 19 masked versions of himself. In the eye socket of each himself was embedded a human tooth from a different year, a deciduous tooth from 1937, a decayed tooth from 1993, and a wisdom tooth from 2023. Wang Yin, Lin Yunyang suddenly exclaimed. Su Wanyan turned around and saw a green mist rising from the direction of the ancestral hall. 19 long burning lamps burst out of the window, and on the wicks danced flames in the shape of human faces, exactly the faces of the previous human pillars. The flames floated towards the center of the river and fell into the stone coffins one by one. Suddenly, a hand stretched out from the gap of the 20th stone coffin. The pagoda wood birthmark on the wrist was exactly the same as his, and half of a torn page of a theater ticket was stuck in the fingernail, exactly the other half of the ticket in his hand. Boom! The coffin lid of the 20th stone coffin smashed heavily onto the water surface. In the splashing waves, Su Wanyan saw an altar made of pagoda wood, slowly rising from the depths of the river. The coffin lids of the 19 stone coffins were pieced together on the altar into the shape of 1,000 hands, and the central empty space was right in front of his heart. In the center of the altar, half of a Nuo Opera mask was suspended in the air. The blood beads oozing from the eye sockets formed the words, "Return to the position," on the water surface. Lin Yunyang suddenly staggered and knelt down. The birthmark on the back of her neck resonated with the river, God's vein. Her gaze passed through Su Wanyan and stared straight at the bottom of the river. On the winter solstice in 1937, I saw Aunt Xunyang engraving words in the stone coffin. Her hands were bleeding, but she was smiling at me, ... Her voice suddenly became hoarse, like a paper page soaked in water for 30 years. She said that when Wanyan's blood drips into the eye socket, the thousand-hand lord will open his eyes. Su Wanyan's flashlight clattered to the ground. The beam swayed at the bottom of the river, illuminating the inside of the 19th stone coffin. There were densely engraved small characters. The latest line was his dream this morning. Su Wanyan stands under the mountain god pagoda tree and sees 19 paper figures carrying a sedan chair. Inside the sedan chair sits himself in a red wedding dress. The edges of the handwriting were seeping fresh blood beads, exactly matching the scratch on his palm. Crash. A sound of tree bark bursting came from the direction of the mountain god pagoda tree. Su Wanyan turned his head and saw the human face pattern on the tree trunk crying. The red tree sap flowed into the Yinshui River along with the rain, dyeing the river blood red. The tree shadow cast a huge 1,000 hands outline on the river surface. Each finger corresponded to a stone coffin, and the fingertip of the middle finger was pointing at the 20th stone coffin. "It's time to go home, Wanyan." A faint call came from the stone coffin, sounding like his mother Su Xunyang's voice, yet also like the echo of bubbles bursting at the bottom of the river. Su Wanyan's birthmark suddenly burned. He looked down and saw his reflection split into two in the water. One was lying in the stone coffin, wearing his mother's silver bracelet around the neck. The other was standing on the bank, holding half of a mask in his hand. In the eye socket of the mask was reflected the image of 19 himself, turning their heads simultaneously. Lin Yunyang suddenly grabbed his wrist and dragged him towards the riverbank. Chen Xiazi's paper-making shop. "He left something for you." Before she could finish, a heavy object splashing sound came from the center of the river. The coffin lid of the 20th stone coffin was completely opened, and inside were neatly placed 19 sacrifices. A red-headed rope from 1937, a silver bracelet fragment from 1993, and a notebook he lost last year. Each item was engraved with the same incantation, and the incantations connected into a line, pointing straight at his forehead. What made his hair stand on end the most was that on the inside of the stone coffin, all his secrets from childhood to adulthood were engraved with the river god incantations. The front tooth he broke when stealing the offerings from the mountain god temple as a child. The details of the coffin sinking in the first novel he wrote in college. And even the scene of Lin Yunyang turning into a paper figure in his dream last night. These things that only he knew were now, along with the black fog gushing out from the coffin, turning into 19 eyeless paper figures, staggering towards him. "Su Wanyan!" Lin Yunyang suddenly shrieked. Su Wanyan looked down and found that his left ring finger was becoming ligneous, with the texture exactly the same as that of the mountain god pagoda tree. And the birthmark on the back of Lin Yunyang's neck had somehow transferred to his wrist, forming a complete coffin shape. Even more eerily, the coffin lids of all the stone coffins at the bottom of the river turned towards him at the same time. In the eye socket of each mask was reflected his current appearance. The blood-colored flocculent pattern in the left eye iris was spreading wildly, much like the pupil of the 1,000-hand corpse god. The rain reached its peak at this moment. Su Wanyan heard 19 bell tolls coming from the mountain god temple, which was the bell sound of the first river god's sacrifice in 1937. He suddenly remembered the last page of Chen Xiazi's drum score, the handwriting that could only be revealed with his own blood. When the twin fiends appear, the 1,000 hands open their eyes. Only by cutting off a finger can the cycle be broken, and his left ring finger was now ligneous up to the first knuckle. "Run!" Lin Yunyang suddenly pushed him. Su Wanyan stumbled and fell. The flashlight rolled towards the center of the river. In the beam of light, a figure in a red wedding dress slowly sat up in the 20th stone coffin. The face was exactly the same as his, but with a sense of vicissitudes that didn't belong to him. He looked down at the half mask in his hand, with Su Xunyang's silver bracelet embedded in the eye socket. When he opened his mouth, the voice was like countless bubbles bursting. "Wanyan, we've been waiting for you for 30 years." A rumble of stone coffins moving came from the bottom of the river. The 19 stone coffins formed a circle with the 20th one as the center. The 1,000 hands pattern formed by the coffin lids cast a huge shadow on the blood-colored water surface. Su Wanyan's ligneous finger touched the pagoda tree sawdust on the bank, and countless images exploded in his mind. Chen Xiazi's back when carving paper figures in the paper-making shop, the human pillar ledger in the hidden compartment of Lin Wanshan's office, and the sentence in his mother's diary soaked in blood. The blood of the twin fiends is the key to open the 1,000 hands. When the other himself stood up from the stone coffin, the river water suddenly flowed backwards. knocking Su Wangyan down in front of the sacrificial stele. His back hit the cold stele. Looking up, he saw new engravings emerging on the stele in the colored moonlight. They were ancient characters he had never seen before, but in his heart he clearly translated their meaning. When the blood of the twin fiends simultaneously drips into the eye sockets, the thousand-hand corpse god will rise from Yinshan. Brother Wang Yin catch. Lin Yunyang's voice pierced through the rain curtain. Su Wanyan looked up and saw half of a Nuo opera mask flying through the rain curtain, exactly the one left by his mother. The light from the broken edge of the mask corresponded to the half mask in the hand of himself in the stone coffin. He suddenly understood Chun Chitizi's death, Lin Wanshan's betrayal, and even his mother's coffin sinking were all for the twin fiends to stand in the center of the river on this night 30 years later and complete this sacrifice that spanned 100 years. The himself in the stone coffin took the first step. The soles of his shoes were covered with the red sand from the bottom of the river, exactly the same as the red sand in the hidden compartment of Lin Wanshan's office. Su Wangyan's birthmark ached violently. He finally remembered what Chun Xiaozi had said in his dream. In 1937, Luo Men engraved the seal of the twin fiends on the mountain god pagoda tree, but it was tampered with by Lin Wanshan using a living person's sacrifice. Now, only your blood can make the thousand hands sleep forever. But at this moment, his blood was dripping along the ligneous finger, drawing the outline of 1,000 hands on the sacrificial stele. The himself in the center of the river raised the half mask. In the eye socket were black holes, the emptiness after the souls of the previous human pillars were devoured. Su Wanyan suddenly realized that the so-called twin fiends were never two people, but living keys split by the thousand-hand corpse god for its resurrection. Boom! The coffin lid of the 20th stone coffin completely sank into the water. In the splashing waves, Su Wanyan saw at the bottom of the river his mother Su Xunyang's body was lying in the 19th stone coffin. Her neck was wrapped with river-bottom waterweeds, and the birthmark on her left ring finger was exactly the same as his. Her eyes suddenly opened and her mouth silently repeated, "Run, go to Qian region to find Luo Men... The rain stopped abruptly at this moment. The Yinshui River returned to calm. The group of stone coffins slowly sank to the bottom of the river. Only the coffin lid of the 20th stone coffin floated on the water's surface, on which words were engraved at some unknown time. 1937 to 2023, the twin fiends returned to their positions, the thousand hands opened their eyes. In the next 10 years, it's your turn. Su Wanyan picked up the mask tremblingly and found that there was a new notch at the broken edge, exactly the outline of the stilted buildings in Qian region. Lin Yunyang somehow stood behind him. The birthmark on the back of her neck was gone, replaced by the same pagoda wood texture as his on the inner side of her wrist. Chun Xiaozi said that the corpse-driving people of Luo Men have been waiting in Qian region for 300 years. They have a way to stop the thousand hands... In the distance, the mountain god pagoda tree groaned as if it couldn't bear the burden. Where the bark peeled off, 19 paper figures were revealed, each wearing a red wedding dress and with Su Wangyan's photo pinned to the chest. He suddenly remembered the always eyeless paper figure in Chun Xiaozi's paper-making shop. It turned out that from the first night he returned to Yinshan, this sacrifice was already doomed. "It's time to go," Lin Yunyang said softly. "The disturbance of the river God's vein has already reached Qian region." Su Wangyan nodded. The half mask in his palm suddenly became hot. The human tooth in the eye socket was slowly growing, turning into the shape of a key. He looked towards the center of the river. The 20th stone coffin was sinking. The reflections of him and Lin Yunyang in the coffin were gradually merging into a human figure holding a broken knife. And deep at the bottom of the river, the left-hand stump of the thousand-hand corpse god was slowly clenching its fist. On each finger, the coffin lid reflected Su Wangyan's terrified face. When the last ray of moonlight was covered by the dark clouds, a deep laugh came from the bottom of the river, mixed with the click sound of the stone coffin closing, marking the end of Volume 1, but making the entire Yinshan village wait for the next time the twin fiends open their eyes in the blood-colored dawn. The end of this episode. The story continues. Subscribe now.